You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast, the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me on socials at SamLittle44 and the podcast at Maple Footy Pod. And now there's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, and welcome back to the Maple Footy Podcast. We're so back. Also, just going to quickly preface this entire episode by saying I woke up with a bit of a sore throat. Could have something to do with it being in the streets of Toronto on November 1st. You know, hoping for the Jays to win, and then the exact next day watching the game at Hamilton Stadium. So maybe something to do with the chilly weather. Who knows? But regardless, if my voice, I feel like it doesn't sound super off right now. Hopefully that doesn't change. But if it starts to kind of sound like it might be going, that could be why. But you know what you clicked on. We're going to be talking about the Forge and Cavalry semifinal. History was made. Forge FC, first ever time they will not feature in the CPL final in 7 seasons. All 6 seasons before this one, Forge have featured in the final until now. So, in a weird way, history was made. History doesn't always have to be a good thing. Well, I mean, I guess it's good if you're a Cavalry fan and an Ottawa fan. But, like, if you're, like, a fan of Forge, it's not good. But, yeah, we will talk about that game. And then next episode, 104, which we'll be releasing later this week, I will be talking about the Whitecaps win, some other Canadian news, and what have you. But, yeah, this is exclusively CPL. So let us get into it. Before we get into the game proper, also, refereeing performance once again was up to the CPL standard, and that CPL standard being the worst reffing you will ever see. And that goes for both teams. I don't think either team really benefited from this reffing performance. I mean, I guess in a way Cavalry kind of did a little bit more. They were time wasting basically after they scored their goal, and then the ref just didn't start yellow carding guys until like the 90th minute anyway. So at that point, no real point. But even that, I wouldn't really say they super duper benefited off of that. And there really wasn't like a call where it's like, oh, that cost Forge the game, or that was the reason Cavalry won. Let's be real here. But I just think it's disappointing to always come out of a game and go, man, that reffing performance was terrible, as it tends to usually be in the CPL, which is a shame. But I mean, I guess it's consistent with just every other sporting league in the world, so that's a plus in a weird way. But what do you say? We talk about Forge first because they were the losing team on the day. Yeah, we'll talk about Forge first, then we'll pump the tires of Cavalry a little bit, and then we'll call it a day. That's a fun way to put it. Sorry, as I'm trying to find a place to put my water. Evidently, it's just going to be resting on my knee. All right. Yeah, where do I even start? Really disappointing, I think, for Forge. I think that's the best way to put it. They went over 20 games undefeated in the regular season, and you don't make the final. That is really bad, in my opinion. That's a bad way to end the season. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't discredit the things that they accomplished this season. Like, going that many unbeaten is a good thing, and you cannot make the final every single year. The fact that they've made 6 finals out of 7 is still astonishing, and I don't want this to sound like I'm hating on the Hammers. I'm a Hamilton boy, so I'm coming from probably a more fan-oriented take when it comes to Forge and a more unbiased take when it'll come to Cavalry. But yeah, very disappointing, I think, is the best way to sum this up. I was never fully in love with their undefeated run. I thought it flattered them a little bit this season. I don't think they played nice football for most of this season. And I've said that in the past, and it has not changed. I also said in the past, undefeated runs actually scare me. Because usually when a team goes undefeated for a long stretch of a season in any sport, they end up usually not pulling off the big one. And I know you can say, well, they won the regular season, but the players themselves in interviews had said, this is not the trophy we want. So you can't use that as a trump card here well, look at they did have a very successful season. Don't get me wrong. Once again, still, I think a moderately successful season, a better season than most CPL teams have ever had. That is, I don't think that you can complain about that. Results are results. But yeah, I just think a very disappointing end to a season that I think flattered them in a way. I think they got maybe too comfortable in their winning, drawing ways, and they never really felt like they had a plan B. The moment Cavalry went up in this game particularly, it didn't really feel like Forge knew what to do. They played the exact same way that they had been beforehand. There was no real urgency until the last 8 minutes of stoppage time, and from there Cavalry had closed up shop. Cavalry did their part well, and don't worry, I will get to Cavalry, but we'll talk about Forge specifically for the time being. But yeah, I just think a disappointing end, and I think that this defeat lies at the feet of the manager, Bobby Simeonionis, and once again, not going to go off and be like, sack him tomorrow. No, obviously not. He has literally been the most successful coach in CPL history, so I'm not going to sit here and be like, get him gone. Obviously, no. I do just think he got found out a little bit, and he didn't know how to adapt to that. I think most of Forge's big losses this season were on him. I think the Whitecaps loss was very bad, and yes, I do know, well, they're playing the Whitecaps. That is true. That is true. But they were not set up to thrive against that Whitecaps side, and then they got demolished. The loss against Cavalry, the 4-1, I thought was on him. Not enough rotation after bolstering about having great depth in the squad. And then there was the Ottawa loss in this semifinal. Once again, I just don't think he set them up properly. This game against Cavalry, I do think he set them up pretty decently. My thing is his in-game management, I think, let him down. He didn't make, I think, the right substitutions, and he kind of got outcoached in the game, because the first half, I thought Forge was the far better team. They just couldn't capitalize. They fell apart in the final third, which has been an issue for Forge all season. And then in the second half, they go 1-0 down, and then he doesn't really change anything. And then the substitutions, I think, were very disappointing, very lackluster and uninspired. And I think that as the manager, you have to look at yourself and go, all right, next season, what do we do? What do we do to change this? So for next season, if I am Forge, I think I'm a little bit worried. Not to the point of where it's like disastrous, but I think I'm just worried of hoping that you can adapt and hoping that you can bounce back, because I think that the problem with Forge this season was they didn't really adapt. They had their one way and it worked. Hence the undefeated run. It worked. And then you lost a couple times, but then you kind of picked up results again. And then you lost in the semifinal, and then you lost in the other semifinal because your tactics weren't working and you didn't change them. That's my opinion. But yeah, once again, I'm not going to sit here and be like, get them gone. No, obviously not. I do just think that it's fair to criticize. And I'd be saying this if it was, say, Cavalry that went on, they're undefeated. Like if Cavalry was in Forge's position, or if Ottawa was in Forge's position, or name whatever team if they were in Forge's position, I'd be saying the same thing. But yeah, we'll go player by player now, as I've kind of discussed why I think this was a little bit of a disappointing end to a lukewarm season, which I think is probably a crazy take out of context, but I've explained it, I think, pretty well. So yeah, we'll go with Jassim Kolelat. I thought he had a decent game. He really didn't have much to do. Nothing he could have done about the goal, really. And he did make a great save towards the end of the match that if Forge, say, did go on to turn this around, I think you'd be looking at that as the turning point in the game. It was a wonderful save. Intigny was in one-on-one with Kolelat. Kolelat timed his kind of coming out off the line perfectly, made himself big, really closed down any lanes for Intigny, and made a great stop. A shame that, we probably won't talk about it past today. But yeah, probably in my opinion, his save of the season. I thought it was a great stop. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about Kalela. Really was unchallenged on the day. Nothing he could have done about the goal. And the one time I thought he was really called upon, he really showed up. Left back, Marko Yevremovic. I don't think this was a great outing for him. I thought he was getting really had trouble handling Moosey, which no shame in that, one of the best players in the league. And then I will say once again, kind of as I said with the Atletico Ottawa game, it felt like he was getting spotted a lot, not getting spotted, sorry, a lot for some runs he was making. He was making a lot of great runs through kind of the middle or up the wing, and no one would find him, which I think is a shame because he has a great run and a great final ball on him, and I don't think that was really capitalized on. And then he got pulled off. And that was kind of his night. So yeah, not his most impressive outing, but marking one of the best players in the league, and then also not really being spotted. You're not really going to make a mark on the game, are you? Right back, Rama. Don't think this was a great game for him either. Didn't really do much. I think for most of this season, I think he's really struggled with one-on-one defending. As I wipe something from my eye, he's really struggled with one-on-one defending. I think he's also struggled to really contribute in the attack a lot. Once again, kind of suffering from the same as Marko Yevremovic in that aspect, where he makes a good run, but then just isn't really spotted. So you're kind of leaving your fullback with not a whole lot to do. And I do know he was nominated for Defender of the Year. So, what do I know, I guess. But yeah, no, I thought he struggled on the day with his one-on-one defending. I thought Intigne, every time he was on the ball, Rama didn't really close him down ever, and really struggled to keep him at bay. And then, as I said, going forward, didn't really contribute a whole ton. The center backs for Forge, I think the pair of them were very good on the day. Malik Oluwabi-Belawu played his last game for Forge. Always liked Malik Oluwabi-Belawu. Always a big fan of him. I think Forge are really going to miss him because when he's healthy, he's one of the best defenders in the league, if not the best defender in the league. I said it. And I think they're going to miss him. I do think his rustiness, because he's been in and out of the lineup a lot with injuries and whatnot, I think his rustiness kind of caught him a little bit for the goal, albeit the ball did take a little bit of an awkward bounce and he didn't just react quick enough. But the amount of tackles that he was making and bailing Forge out so many times on the day, it's a shame that his one slip up leads to the Cavalry goal, because other than that, I thought he played a great game. I think it was a great send-off for him personally. Obviously, result aside, I think it's a performance that he can really hold his head high with, and it's a great way for the Forge fans to remember him because he has done so much for that club, and it's going to be sad to see him go. But yeah, a real big fan of Malik, and I wish him nothing but the best with Chesterfield. And yeah, I think he's done himself proud. And he's done his team proud. So I take that goal and I go, you know what? You earned a slip up. You know what I mean? He's been great for Forge, and he was really great on the day. Dan Nimick, my defender of the spoiler for my CPL awards, my defender of the year. He was great on the day as well, as he has been for 95% of the season. He's such a rock back there. He's so good. He really, really marked Warshevsky quite well, I thought, at times. They both of them had a very good battle between one another, kind of besting each other a couple times. And that's what you love to see. And yeah, just his distribution as well, I thought was on point. He made some great tackles, great interceptions. And yeah, really, once again, just proving why he, in my opinion, was the best defender in the league this season. He played a near perfect game. So there you have it. That's what I thought of the Forge defense on the day. Moving into the midfield, Alexander Ashinjodi-Janssen played in the midfield. I know he's actually a natural midfielder, even though he has played center back for Forge for 7 seasons. But yeah, I thought he was quite good. Really helped sweep up a lot. And I think that I keep on saying a lot of the Forge players were quite good on the day because it kind of fell apart in the front three, but we'll get to that. But yeah, Janssen really played that cover for the defense well. There was times where he dropped back into a center back role. So let's say Malik could push up, Yevremovic could push up, Rama could push up, although none of them were ever really quite spotted. But regardless, he would kind of drop in. I thought he looked calm. He looked collected. And yeah, especially being asked to play in the midfield. I do know that, yes, he is a natural midfielder. But when you've played center back for, 7 seasons essentially, and now you're being asked, okay, play midfield again. I think he adapted quite well. He made some big tackles. You could see that center back side of him come out a couple of times. But yeah, I think it was a good performance from him as well. Kyle Becker, I thought it was better than last week, where I was a bit critical on the CPL GOAT. But you could tell his legs were getting tired towards the end, which is, I think, why he got pulled. I just don't think he could keep up with the play as much. His legs were getting tired. His passes were getting a little bit sloppier as the game kind of progressed. But regardless, I do still think he had a decent outing, and he had a phenomenal season. But yeah, on the day, not that he super struggled, but you could tell as the minutes kind of clocked up, he was kind of getting a bit more leggy, I think is the best way to describe it, but still a leggy Kyle Becker, still, one of the best midfielders in the league. My man of the match, Alessandro Hojabrpour. I know who's on the losing side, and you don't usually give the man of the match to the losing team, one of the members of the losing team. Hojabrpour was my man of the match. I thought it was unreal. This was Hojabrpour from 2024. He was everywhere in a good way. He was cleaning up for his midfield, for his defense, for the attackers. Some of the balls he was putting through were just phenomenal, just on a dime. A shame they didn't amount to much, but I just thought he was so good. He was cleaning up everywhere. He was doing all the things he was doing last year, which warranted him getting an MVP nomination. And I think this was him running that back. Do you know what I mean? This was 2024 Hojabrpour. I thought it was great. Genuinely. My player for both teams, I thought he was unreal. I do know, I'm pretty sure Warshevsky got the official award, which is fair too. But yeah, I just thought Hojabrpour just did so much on and off the ball for Forge. I just think if they had won this, you'd be going, he kind of won them that game. My opinion. Moving into the attack, this is where I think the woes were for Forge on the day, as I think a lot of the times this season the attack has let them down. Nana Mpoma, really, really disappointing day for him, I thought. Just really uninspired, really lackluster too. He kept on taking extra touches he did not need to take. There was times where he could have whipped a ball in first time and would take a couple extra touches and get dispossessed. As an attacker, I think you need to understand and know when to let the ball go, and I think that he really struggled with that on the day, which is a shame because I thought he had a decent season. But yeah, he was very lackluster on the day. Moving over to the left, Jose Masunda. Once again, I think he really struggled to make an impact in this game. He had a couple nice runs, a couple nice plays, but kind of like Mpoma, he just didn't release the ball when he should have. And when they both kind of did, it would maybe be a bit sloppy, and it would be hard for them to really make anything of those sloppy passes, which is a shame because Jose was just nominated for Young Player of the Year. But yeah, I just think the attack was really lackluster. Brian Wright, I think, as he did all season, struggled, and I don't think it's fully his fault. I think he's playing in a system that does not suit his style of play. Brian Wright, in my opinion, is best in a possession-based system that is flowing through a number 9, kind of like it was with York last year. And I know Forge are a possession-based system, but they do not flow through their number 9. If anything, he is super isolated. He had, I think I count one hand how many touches he had on the day. He did score a goal that was offside. It looked pretty close to me from the one singular replay I saw in the stadium. It was a nice finish, by the way, by Brian Wright. And I think it's a shame that they didn't use Wright to his full strengths, because I do think that if you do, he's one of the best strikers in the league. I mean, you don't win Player of the Year in 2024 if, you don't got the sauce a little bit. And yeah, I just think that like on this day and basically throughout most of the season, they just didn't involve him enough. And you're not going to get the best of Brian Wright if you don't involve him enough. We move into the substitutes, and this is where I think they really got it wrong on the day as well. Pulling off your one and only striker in the 61st minute when you're in need of a goal is, in my opinion, pretty inexcusable. I understand he was not involved, but then once again, kind of like last week against Ottawa, you then start whipping balls into the box where no one's there because you don't have a striker there. You did against Ottawa, you pulled off Brian Wright, then all of a sudden you started playing towards a striker who was no longer there. You brought in David Choinière, who I think had maybe his worst and most disappointing season in the Orange of Forge. Not to discredit everything he has accomplished with this club. He's done very well with the team, and he's a day oneer at Forge, scored some massive goals for them. But this season, I just don't think he was up to it for a lot of it. And to bring him in to replace the only striker, I thought was an extremely questionable choice. And I think from there, you kind of saw the writing on the wall for Forge, if you will. Another thing that was the writing on the wall, Tristan Borges not being introduced until the last 15 minutes. I understand Tristan Borges did not have his best season. I think for the latter half of the season, I thought he really started to come along a lot better. He dealt with a lot of injuries as well. But I think from about August onwards, he looked pretty good in a lot of games. And to have him on the bench, I guess, I would have started him. But to have him on the bench, you kind of go, okay, maybe super sub kind of thing. Bring him in early into the second when it's still close, maybe when it's still 0-0. But you don't do that. You bring him on when you're chasing. He doesn't really acclimatize to the game because you're throwing him in with 15 minutes left. And I don't know. I couldn't believe that Borges didn't start in a big game. Big game Borges. You know what I mean? The amount of times that he's done something in a big match and he's not started, and then he only gets 15 minutes, I think is a strange choice. Harry Payton and Mo Babuli came on the 85th. I think that's this is going to sound harsh. I think this is kind of a slap in the face to a guy like a Noah Jensen. I could be a little bit biased because he was a guest on the podcast. But Harry Payton, no disrespect to him at all. I think he's a very good player. My thing is, he just looks on a different page than a lot of the Forge players because he's been there for a month-ish, like 2 months. So now you bring him in with 5 minutes left, which is already a pretty tough task, and then he's not really super acclimatized with his teammates, naturally so, because he hasn't really played with them. He didn't even start a game for Forge. So you're bringing a guy in who's been with the club for no more than 2 months, and then you bring him in for the last 5 minutes of a game. Not to forget that he hasn't even started a game for Forge in his time with them, so he's barely even played with these guys. I think it's another very questionable decision, especially with a guy like Noah Jensen on the bench who knows the league, knows the team, knows how to play, and I think looked quite good in most of his appearances this season. And once again, that may be coming from a place of bias, and it's nothing against Harry Payton. You look at him and you see a player there. You don't play in Scotland for most of your professional career if there isn't something there. Do you know what I mean? And I am quite the fan of Harry Payton. So once again, nothing against Harry Payton. I just thought it was another strange decision, in my opinion. Mo Babuli coming in, you're giving him 5 minutes. He's not going to do a whole ton with 5 minutes. He had his moments this season. Mo had his moments. And what are you going to do in 5 minutes? Do you know what I mean? I just think this is what I mean, where the substitutions didn't really pan out. And a guy like Ben Payton, once again, maybe a little bit biased because he was on the podcast, but a guy like Ben Payton not even making the match day squad is a weird choice to me, especially when he's a versatile player that can play as a midfielder and as a left back. It's a very weird choice for him not to be included in the match day squad, not even giving yourself that option. Maybe he could have come in for like a Becker or a Yevremovic. You know what I mean? Just those are kind of the decisions where I'm talking about where it's a little bit strange. But that kind of brings an end to the Forge talk, I think. So yeah, overall, not a great way to end this season. They'll go again next season, and I am talking from the point of view of probably a pretty disappointed fan. So I know I try to keep these as unbiased as I possibly can, but I am also from Hamilton, a Forge fan. So if this came off as maybe a little bit harsh, I apologize. But I feel as though I was, what's the saying? Loving but fair, whatever it is. I don't know. You understand what I mean. But we'll talk about Cavalry now. Here we go. Cavalry. For Cavalry, it's funny because I think this was probably their worst season, like regular season. They struggle with consistency, I think, a lot at times, and then really towards the end of the year, once kind of Dan Klump got reintroduced, they really hit a different gear. Alva as well, I think, was a big turning point for them too, and they kind of hit a different gear, and from there they didn't look back, and they hit a full head of steam right when they needed to, and they carried that into the playoffs. I mean, dismantled York and looked good against Forge and got the job done against Forge. And I think that's a credit to the manager for being able to tweak things with some big signings and re-signings of Dan Klump as well. And then to kind of tweak it, especially losing a guy like Camargo as well is not an easy feat, especially given how influential he was for them this season. So to be able to kind of play your best football now is kind of just shows the level of, I think, team that they have, and the coach being able to kind of adapt to his situation and make changes when needed, both tactically and like personnel wise. So yeah, hats off to Cavalry and Tommy Wheeldon Jr. because, like I said, for a lot of the season, you were kind of looking at Cavalry going, okay, this isn't the same Cavalry that won this last year, right? And then, of course, come playoff time, well, before playoff time, they really hit a new gear and carried that into playoffs. And, I mean, they could go back-to-back now. That is how good they have looked in this playoff run and before said playoff run. But we will start off with Carducci. Well, as we do the player-by-player, I apologize. Kind of like Kalela, not a whole ton to do. Wasn't super challenged on the day. I think he did make a pretty big save at the end of the game. A save that he would probably expect himself to make. But still, regardless, right? He was positioned right for the header. I believe it was Rama that put the header in for Ford. That was like their last big chance of the game. And Carducci just grabs it right out the air. Once again, a save that he would himself probably admit, yeah, I should probably make that. But regardless, still a save he has to make. Outside of that, I don't think he was really super challenged on the day. And I'm sure he probably doesn't mind that, But yeah, that's about all I have to say about Carducci. Sorry, Carducci. Your hair looked great on the day. He does have a nice head of hair. Sorry, I have to make myself laugh. We'll move into the defense here. Gurmishnikov. Oh my goodness. I last episode I had such a hard time pronouncing his last name. I literally had to try it 5 times. YouTubed it so many times. I know his name. I just literally could not pronounce it for the life of me. But regardless, enough lore on that. I thought he had a very good game. He made it really difficult for the Forge wingers and Poma and Jose when they would kind of swap a few times aside. He made it quite difficult for them. I think he played the game that you would want your left back to play. He was pretty influential going forward. I thought he offered some nice overlaps, and then as well was always there to be like a one-on-one defender and help his center backs as well. Not that I really thought that their defense struggled on the day. Towards the end of the game, they really had to lock in as Forge was just throwing bodies forward, but they locked up shop just super well, all 4 of them. And yeah, I think that just speaks once again to the team that Cavalry kind of has at the moment. We'll talk about right back Fraser Aird. I'm a fan of Fraser Aird. I quite like Fraser Aird. In my opinion, one of the best right backs, if not the best right back in the league. he just plays like a freight train. Do you know what I mean? And I mean that in like the best possible way. Where he's just bombing up and down the wing kind of all day, and then also will put in a hard tackle. Is a good defender and was good defending on the day. Made it very hard for Jose Masunda to really find much joy on that wing. And he just looked quite good. I'm a fan of his, though. As my email goes off. But yeah, I thought he had a good performance. Once again, just such a vocal leader as well, and leads by example on the pitch. I know he's not the captain of the team. That is, of course, Carducci. But I always see Aird as like their kind of, not even vice captain, just like number 2 captain. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's so vocal and then plays at such a high intensity that's kind of like, the boys around me better keep up, you know? And I really love that. Moving into the center backs, I'm just going to lump them both together, Klomp and Field. They had a quiet day. They had a quiet day. When they were called upon, I thought they looked good. I once again thought that they helped Cavalry build from the back, but they were quite unchallenged. And anytime a ball kind of came into the box, they were there to deal with it, you know, head the ball out. Easy day for them. And kind of like I said for Carducci, they probably enjoy having a bit of an easy day. I don't think that it will be an easy day against Ottawa for these guys. Ottawa is a very attack-minded team. So I think it'll be a very interesting matchup, but we'll kind of get to that once I'm done talking about Cavalry. Moving into midfield, Shome 2-6 on Cavalry. Once again, you're going to be shocked to hear this. Thought he had a good game. Felt like he was everywhere. Controlled Cavalry's tempo a lot, I thought, too. Helped slow down the game at times. Helped pick up the pace at times, which is, I think, what you want one or all of your midfielders to do. And just looking at some of his stats here, 93% pass completion. That's pretty impressive. I know we try not to harp too much on stats, but that's one that you kind of go, all right, fair play, buddy. But yeah, just really helped slow down the game at times. With some of the passes he was making, just, you know, killing any forge like momentum. You get him on the ball, he kind of pass it back to the defense, hold on to it a little bit, pass it along. You know what I mean? Like the kind of performance that maybe might fly under the radar, but is still just as important as I think every other performance on the pitch. His midfield partner on the day, Kobza, once again, he was quite good. Sorry, really deep lying analysis on this one. But yeah, once again, I thought he was good. You know, another guy that helped slow it down a lot, and I think really contributed in the defense as well. You know, when Forge were piling the bodies forward, he was kind of there. You know, he would head a ball out, intercept a clearance. Once again, also slow down the game a little bit too. So just all like those little things that add up over the 90 minutes that bring you success, and it's those little things that go under the radar a little bit. Moving forward here, this is where I think the proper differences were made between the two sides. The front four Cavalry is just playing on a different level at the moment to, I think, most other teams in the CPL. I mean, there's only 2 teams left in the CPL, but for the last few months, they've been playing at just a different level. You know, Warshevsky started the season off slowly and built into this season and is now looking unstoppable again. Ali Musi has had a great season again. Want to remind you, no Camargo is a big loss. Intigne as well, looking very rapid, and then Alva too, looking proper, leading that line greatly. So we'll talk about these guys. Ali Musi was so tricky, man, on the day. He is just one of those players, as I said, I believe, when they beat York. He's just one of those players that's just so much fun to watch, you know? Like, he's got the ball at his feet, and he's just proper. Like, he's what you want in your winger. He's really direct. He's really creative as well, and has a great set piece on too, a good final ball as well. And you were seeing all that on the day. It was really making it hard for for Yevremovich to mark him, as I alluded to earlier with when I was talking about Yevremovich. Ali Musi was just getting around these guys just almost with ease. He looked so good. And Tigny on the left as well looked quite good. Kind of same thing, looked very direct, looked very creative, looked very positive. I think he will be disappointed not to leave the game with a goal, as I think he probably should have scored that one. But if that's the worst that we're saying for him in a game where Cavalry won and he looked quite good, then I think he had quite the good game. Playing in the number 10 was Warshevsky. I don't know who thought of this. Obviously, probably Tommy Wheeldon Jr. or one of the coaching staff members. But playing Warshevsky as a number 10 is actually elite. Like that's an insane call, and it's worked. And I mean insane in a good way. Because something I love about Warshevsky is his dribbling ability. It's so hard to get the ball off of him. Like, he's just able to dance around guys. He uses his size just so well as well. And it makes it so hard for guys to mark him and to get the ball off him. As I alluded to earlier, he had a good battle with, I think, Dan Nimick on the day. But even still, he was finding a lot of joy. And his distribution as well is quite good. Being able to spread the ball, whether it is to Alva, Musi, and Tigny, he looked very good on the day and scores the crucial goal. It's a great finish from him as well. That's his third in 2 playoff games. Yeah, because he got 2 against York. Yeah, Ottawa's gonna have a tricky day marking Warshevsky, I think. But I think they definitely can. But it's gonna be difficult. And Alva, I think, led the line really, really well. Was a solid outlet for the most part, and I think he opens up the game for Warshevsky a lot. I think that defenders are kind of worried about Alva because he is the striker. He's a big body. You want to mark him, obviously. That then you kind of go, oh shoot, now Warshevsky's got the ball. So he kind of plays that complementary role a little bit. One of those strikers where it's like he might not score you, X amount of goals a year, but it's the things that he's going to do off the ball, and that's going to enhance the teammates around him. I think that's what he really offered on the day. And also another guy that was unlucky probably not to leave the game with a goal, as one of his chances rifled off the post. But yeah, I thought he had a good day as well. Moving into the substitutes. This was where I think Wheeldon Jr. played it well. He didn't make substitutes and really kill the momentum of his boys that were on until he kind of felt the game was wrapped. I feel like his substitutes were kind of just, okay, we're going to slow it down a little bit. Forge feels like they might be building something. We're going to slow it down. They felt tactical, They brought on Gutierrez in the 78th, Levi Lang in the 78th for Aird and Warshevsky. And it was just kind of, we're going to slow it down. Slow the game down. Slow it down. I mean, you're taking off Warshevsky, so right there. You're slowing the game down. You put more guys in your half to kind of really help the defensive mindset of your team going forward. And, yeah, I mean, that's what you need to do sometimes. And I know when you're watching it as a fan of the opposing team, you kind of go, oh, come on, hurry up with the substitutions. But it is smart management, and it is a very smart way to play it, so you can't fault it. You really can't. But yeah, I feel like that kind of brings me to an end about talking about Cavalry. Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with that. They heaped some praise on them. And yeah, that sets up Cavalry and Atletico Ottawa. It does feel wrong, Forge not being in the final. Like, is this even allowed? Is this legal? Can we do a final without Forge? We've had 6 of 6 so far. Now we're not going to have them in this one? Strange. Very strange. I think it will be a very interesting matchup because both these teams look very good defensively and look very good going forward, and really thrive in those possession-based kind of systems. Ottawa, I'll be very interested to see how they line up against this Cavalry defense. Like, I'll be interested to see how Sam Salter lines up against Dan Klump, and I'll be interested to see how like a guy like Warshevsky is going to fare against Abatne. You know, I'm very excited, actually. I think it could be a very... Oh, my mic almost fell. I think it's going to be a very interesting final, and one that I think will be worth watching. Should I do a prediction? I guess I'll do a little bit of I guess I'll do a prediction. Not that it even matters. I don't know. 2-1 Atletico Ottawa. If that comes off, I look like a genius. If not, I'll go, oh, well, it was an impromptu prediction. So, yeah, the final is November 9th. So definitely check that out. I think it will be a good game. I think it'll be worth watching. We will do a final recap, and then after that, in a separate episode, we will do Maple Footy CPL Awards. So that'll be really fun. Going to give some of the guys praise, and from there, we're also going to talk about each team, the season that they had, what they can kind of maybe do going into next season, their best players, all that fun stuff. So yeah, stick around for all that stuff. It'll be all be dropping after the final, of course. But yeah, looking forward to those, and I hope you are too. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I do hope that you enjoyed, and yeah, keep supporting Canadian footy, you know. And until next time, cheers, everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates. Remember to support Canadian football, be kind, and until next time, live, laugh, little.